Well, I was just informed that I will never be an alpha earner. And I asked why. And you're about to find out. Kathleen Miller joins us again. Kathleen, welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Good.
Good. You've published 2 books. You've been honored with the Influencer Award by Financial Planning Magazine, and are actually considered to be one of the top 100 wealth advisors by Worth Magazine. So we really appreciate you coming here and sharing all your knowledge because, well, A, you do know a lot about it, and B, you can tell me why I'm never going to be an alpha earner.
An alpha earner is a woman, and it came really out of the 70s, and it was for women that earned more than 60% of the household income. And it really, in divorce, many times people are labeled. Women who stayed at home and raised the children were called displaced homemakers, or now it's politically correct to call them the economically disadvantaged spouse. But there's also been a movement.
That's the economically correct thing, or that's the politically correct thing to say?
Right. And with alpha earners out there now, which are the women, whether it's in a wife or in a relationship, that are earning 60% of the income, now we have men that are being called the displaced homemaker or the economically disadvantaged spouse. So the alpha earner was really, I think, came out of the 70s in the women's movement to say there are many women out there, and the trend today is that women are earning more degrees, and many women are in households or in relationships where they are earning more than 60% of the income.
And you'd actually mentioned, part of it is this dominant career. Is it only when you make 60% or more, or does it also maybe have to do with career and not just the finances?
No, it has. It's a label that came because you provided 60% of the household income, and that's how you became an alpha earner. You can have a dual career couple, but somebody's going to make more money in the relationship, and that's where the label came from.
And so is this a growing trend?
Absolutely.
With women making more than their husbands or
Absolutely.
Partners?
We're seeing, it does make a difference if you marry an alpha earner or somebody becomes an alpha earner in the middle of the relationship. Both of those have some financial baggage that goes with it. Because now you'll have dual career couples, for example, and they decide that they are going to have a family. And maybe she has a better job than he does and more upward mobility, so he decides he's going to stay home and be the person who primarily takes care of the children. So that person can become an alpha earner, or she may come into the relationship and already be that. And it's really about their relationship around money.
And, you are an absolute expert with relationships and money. And, that is something that, you have to really take emotion and a lot of rationality and kind of put a square peg in a round hole to make that work. Talk a little bit about, how couples go through some of this, the alpha earners, or how couples can deal with this. What are some of the big discussion points?
Well, I do counseling with people that are getting married before they get married many times. Their parents will say, would you really do a couple sessions? Because when you have two people that work independently, you have to decide how you're going to share your money. Are you each going to keep your separate accounts? And if you are the alpha earner and you ultimately go in a divorce, you're going to have the same frustration and anger that any man would who's earning most of the money. And so you have to justify your position. But in a positive way, people deal with money differently. They have a different relationship, and we all get labeled around money. When you were growing up, were you considered a spender? Were you a saver? Were you independent, responsible? Right. Well, I think most entrepreneurs are risk takers. They have to be able to go into that. Was security your most important thing? So when you go in a relationship with someone else, you're going to be bringing two different money systems in, and you're going to have some conflicts. So if you're the alpha earner and now your husband has agreed that he's going to be the corporate wife, and you travel a lot.
Now, is that now appropriate, corporate wife, rather than Mr. Mom?
I think Mr. Mom would probably be more appropriate, but who is defining what the job responsibilities are at home?
That is an interesting question, because do you think, now this is not totally on topic, but do you think there's a lot more infighting in relationships because gender roles have completely, there's less roles defined, there's not a quarterback and a wide receiver, or the team seems to be, everybody's trying to do everything?
Everybody's in training, and, we were all raised by a mother and a father, and the typical parent relationship is where the woman is often stayed home. And I have 4 brothers, and I say I've created the 4 monsters because they're used to being taken care of, and they like being taken care of. And I think a lot of men are in that role. And so if they suddenly are married to an alpha earner and they have to be in the traditional role at home, what does that mean? Doing the laundry or preparing dinner. I mean, whether you're man or woman and you travel and you work 80 hours out of the office, you're going to be tired when you come home. Who's doing that? Do you have a nanny? Do you become the nanny?
Yeah, I mean, when both people are working full time, and it's stressful.
Yes.
My wife and I go through this all the time. You know, she'll come home from work, I come home from work, and we're both sitting there going, well, I just got home too.
That's right.
And so you end up having to really put your best foot forward. So when you go through this alpha earner, into this concept, do the fathers typically work, or is there typically help to maybe to soften maybe there's got to be a little bit of that gender ego blow too.
Absolutely. I think you need to define that before you just suddenly get yourself in that kind of a situation, because some men love to be the stay-at-home dad, but they want to define what that means. The wife may define it differently. There are alpha earners that get very resentful when they have a husband who's at home more, and they come home from traveling and all of this, and the laundry's not done. They don't have a maid coming in, and so it becomes...
And they're drinking beer and watching sports center.
Right. And their buddies are over playing poker on Saturday night. So, yes, and the thing about children, and we were talking about this before your show, children are wonderful, but they take the air out of the room. I mean, they are demanding. That's what a child is all about. And so you're tired, you come home from work, she's tired, so maybe you say we have a date night. We're going to...
Where we'll go out and we'll talk about the kids.
Right. Or try and have a different agenda. Or you'll say, I'm making this money. How can we spend it for the good of the family? What's a common goal or dream that we have? Instead of just having an avalanche of pressure put on you. I think it's important to sort of think about and define those roles before you happily say, okay, I'm going to be the one that's out there and you get to be the stay-at-home dad. And what does that really mean?
Shopping. I think you make a huge point there, though, in defining those goals, because if you don't have goals defined as a couple, it's very difficult to say, well, we should be doing this, not that, because you don't have the leg to stand on, I guess, in the, well, I want to do this. I'm sorry you don't want me to.
Well, I think it's really important to have those discussions, maybe quarterly, and you go out and you say, we're going to have a meeting. This is going to be our date night, but we're going to talk about this and reconfirm in writing what our dreams are and share them with each other. And not just financial, but emotional and romantic or whatever, and that you keep reviewing what those goals are.
It sounds like good information, not only financially, but also just for the health of a marriage.
Right, for the survival of a relationship.
Yeah, well, I'd love to talk with you more about this next time you're here, Kathleen.